Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 517. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed and highly talented Vermont author and poet, Sharon Darrow. Sharon.
Hello, thank you. I'm not sure about internationally unless you're talking about Texas, Vermont, or Hawaii, having been their own country.
And so for our listeners out there who are not watching the video version of this, yet Sharon has the perfect background. You got like a bookshelf behind you with all kinds of books. This is like the quintessential author nook. It looks like that's in the background right now. And I see a lizard. Is that like a lizard on the shelf too?
Oh, yes. And I think I got that in San Antonio, actually.
Okay.
I got it at either that or in New Mexico. It's been a long time that my lizard's been with me.
It's kind of like a little good luck lizard then or something.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? And so you're here to talk about, you've written a lot of books in the past, but you have your recent book that is launching called The Country in the Mirror, Poems of Protest and Witness.
Yes.
Okay.
This first one I've edited.
Okay.
Yeah. I have some poems
edited by
in there.
Sharon Darrow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not completely by me. I have a few poems in there, but I have gathered 89 poets and their poems. I think there's 130 or 40 poems total. And it was a wonderful journey getting to know the poets and seeing what they wanted to write at this time. I felt like a little over a year ago, I was very distressed about what was going on in our country, and so were other people that I knew, and I was going to the Barton Library, and in a poetry group, and every poetry prompt that I got, I was writing a protest poem, and I wasn't the only one. So I decided to do a workshop. So we did 4 weeks of a workshop writing poems of protest and witness, and I also had a song component to it. And then when we were finished, there were I didn't want to stop. I wanted to see what I could do about gathering some more Vermont poets, and I was thinking about the Northeast Kingdom, and then it got somebody. I guess I told the Poetry Society of Vermont, and then people started sending me poems from all over, and even from New Hampshire, and then people who live up here in the summer. I live in New York, and people in Massachusetts. So I was beginning to see that I had people who were interested in writing something that expressed how they were feeling about what was happening in this country at this time. And so then I realized, well, I used to teach with poets in Chicago. So I wrote to many of my friends there and got poems from them. And then I also taught at Vermont College of Fine Arts for 20 years. And I knew that, and I worked in the writing for children and young adults section of the writing program. And I knew many of those did write for adults. So I asked them. And so I have poems from the West Coast. I have poems from Canada. And because one of our teachers was from Canada. Actually more than one, but the one who I wrote to first, and he suggested other people. So it grew and grew and grew. And finally it came to a point where it was time to get it turned in and get it printed, get it published. So I had to stop, but I think I could have kept on for some time. It kept spreading.
Because you did mention it was like you mentioned it was nearly 90 poets, right?
Yeah, 89 poets. And why stop there, right? I had stopped at 88. And then on Facebook one day, I saw this poem by a woman out in California who was writing about the death of Renee Good. And Samantha Colbert, who's the publisher of Rootstock Publishing, asked her if she would join in. And so we put her poem in. It was the last one. So it changed from 88, which I had been for quite a while, to 89. And I feel like we covered a lot of topics, but then here comes a new war. And that's not really,
Right.
We didn't get that one in. So I think there are probably people writing poems now of protest and witness that will be gathered in other places by other people. That's one thing I hope, is that I won't be the only one gathering these poems. I'm sure I won't. But I think because the way we did it, very locally, we didn't have to wait for a long time to get them out. The other books that I've done with trade publishers, it takes a couple of years to get them out sometimes. It was too timely for that. And also don't even know that they would buy this one.
So what was your guiding principle then for like selection and balance for the book?
Well, I realized that I had people writing to me who had never published a poem before. And that thrilled me. And I had people sending in poems who were well published and well known. And that thrilled me. And so I guess I tried to gather a community of people who are all ages and at all stages and from several backgrounds, that would not just be me, just a person from Vermont, or people like me, or my age, or with even my style of poetry. So I liked the idea of a lot of diversity, and I got it.
Okay. Now, so how did you sequence a collection like this so it still has momentum, but it also gives the reader a little bit of a chance to kind of breathe in between each one as well?
Well, that was interesting because I'm not an editor. So I was trying to think about what it's like to put together a poetry manuscript and what it's like to think about the arc of a novel when I'm writing something longer. So I realized that I had been thinking of this as, well, I was writing my poems as the year went by. And so I thought of this as perhaps something that could be somewhat chronological. It's not completely chronological, but it is a little bit. So that was my organizing principle for me. I don't know that it's the best way. It's just the way that I could get my head around it. I had a stack of poems, and I was reading them and putting them in stacks, and realizing that there were several that grouped around various thematic issues, and others that grouped around time. So I tried to make that work. So who knows whether it did or not, but I got them all in there, and I like them, and I'm happy with the way it makes me feel when I read it.
What surprised you most in the submissions or the final mix then?
I was totally surprised when Rachel Hadass sent me a poem, and I'd heard about her and read her poems for years. And I had no idea at that time that she spent some time in the Northeast Kingdom every year in the summer. And so that surprised me. And then it also surprised me I guess it didn't surprise me how generous she was to give me other names and suggest people that I could ask. But it did surprise me how many people were so eager and so quick to do it. And one of those people is Gregory Maguire, who wrote Wicked.
Oh, wow.
And he was right back to me, and he said, I don't know. Let me think about it. And then he wrote, the same day he wrote me this poem and said, what do you think? And I said, I think it's good. Let's put it in there. And so I just appreciate that so much. And then there are other surprises is when I did ask for poems, and one of the women I asked for a poem is a person who spends at least an hour every day at the mall in Washington, D.C., protesting. And she for a while she was protesting at the Supreme Court, and then now she's protesting closer to the White House, usually with the peace vigil. And she had done, I just happened to see her she was one of the students at Vermont College, so I knew her. And so I asked her to write about the destruction of the peace vigil that she had experienced one evening. And so she wrote it in lines, but it was much more of a narrative because she's a narrative writer. She's a fiction writer. So we worked on that to make it hang together more as a poem. And so that thrilled me that we could get something that timely and that close to the White House.
What was the hardest editorial decision you had to make then?
Hardest? Do you know what?
Yeah.
This has been like butter. It's all been easy.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's been like everything has just fallen into place. People have been so kind and so nice and so generous. And then I was going to publish it myself because I've done a couple of self-published books that I knew didn't have a market really, but that I wanted to do. And so I thought I'd do that. But then Samantha sent me a poem. I took it and then she said, would you be interested in being published by Rootstock? So that was easy. That's the easiest one I've ever had of all my books. And I can't think of anything that's hard. I'm sure the hard work. I have arthritis in 2 fingers because of the mouse, repetitive stress. So that's probably the hard part.
The art of this with poetry is like, so how do you avoid preaching while still being direct with these poems?
Well, there may be some preaching. There may be, who knows? I think what happened though is most people were expressing their feelings, their personal responses. And while that could be a sermon, I think that even those that there's some poems that are based on biblical books of the Old Testament from the Hebrew Bible. So that maybe could be, but they're not. They're very artful. They're also timely. So yeah, I don't know. I think, well, maybe we did preach a little. Who knows? Maybe we should preach a little.
and so is how do you protect I mean, this is more could be like a general question too, and maybe not specific to this book, but how do you protect a poem from being swallowed up by the news cycle? How do you keep it evergreen, and how do you keep it relevant, say for years from now?
Well, some of them will adhere to this time, which I think is fine. In my workshop, I used Carolyn Forcher's book on not forgetting, which is protest and witness poems from World War I, from all sorts of conflicts and things that happened across the history. So I think when I read those, they may be particular to their time, but they tell me, oh, these people are like me. I'm like them. And we have the same wants and needs and hopes. And when those are being threatened or dashed, we have responses that are similar. So I hope that will keep people, keep it from being dated. And there are certainly poems that are not going, that are much more general. That's not the right word, but universal, I should say.
Right. Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. So now you're Vermont based. How does that place kind of like shape your reading life and writing life then?
Well, I came to Vermont College as a student in 1994. and I never missed a residency until this COVID. So because
Okay.
I was a student, then I was a grad assistant, and then I was a faculty, got on faculty, and I just kept going to all the residencies. So I think that it shaped me greatly. That's where I learned to be a poet, and where I felt free to be a poet,
Mm.
and where I was encouraged, and then was able to do the same, excuse me, for my students,
Okay.
to empower people to write what they need to write. And sometimes that's a hard thing. Sometimes it's hard to write what you need to write. So I think
Right.
Vermont's the setting. Right now, I live in a very peaceful, beautiful place. And that, I could be writing turmoil and then go outside or look out my windows and realize there is a place of calm and peace, and it's right here.
Right. So was there a poem that you wanted to read in the anthology book?
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that. I guess I could read one of mine because I've got them uh, right here. The Survivors Revolution, press conference November 18, 2025, U.S. Capitol, before the House of Representatives vote to release the Epstein files. On the Capitol steps, women, once girls, young teens exploited, assaulted, harmed by powerful men, masters of finance, now call for truth, a survivor's revolution. Young teens exploited, assaulted, harmed, trapped by lies of bright and safe futures, now call for truth, a survivor's revolution. Vengeance against the deceivers, the users, whose lies of bright and safe futures turned innocent girlhood to sorrow. Revenge against the deceivers, the users, the shouts of release the files for all whose innocence turned to sorrow, ring across the land, across the world. The shout, release the Epstein files, brings shame onto the heads of the guilty, disrupts unholy power in the land across the world, brings princes down, erases their unearned privilege, marks shame upon their foreheads. Guilty, the girls, the women who will not be quiet, confront princes, presidents, erase their unearned privilege. Let their voices rise, our voices rise, release the files. Cry the girls, the women who will not be quiet. They raise the plea for all our girls, for our daughters, for ourselves. Let voices shout, release the files. Let those who use power to hide their rotten faces hear the plea for all our girls, all our children. Let them see their shriveled selves. Let them burn. All those who've used their power to hide their rotten faces, weak, powerful men, masters of deceit and finance, we'll watch them shrink, resized and small, burn on the Capitol steps brought down by women, once girls.
Mm. Wow.
I guess I hope we don't get distracted from certain things by other things.
And so you mentioned too earlier that protest poetry is kind of its own genre of poetry, correct?
I guess it is. Yeah, I think, well, I don't know if it is. I know that there are books of protest poetry, but I haven't really thought about that because so many poems are a cry of some sort, a complaint or a, a hope.
Mm.
So yeah, maybe it is. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know
And
that much about the genres.
and then editing this and putting this anthology together, was this also like a sense of like therapy for you to kind of go through this?
Oh my goodness, yes. And evidently it has been for some of the people who've written them. Um, I was just stunned at the whole debacle, the way our government departments and uh, places like USAID and the Treasury, how things were just taken apart by
Mm.
people who had no authority. So it hurt me. It hurt us, the people who, I guess we believed that this was a strong institution, that our country was set up in a way that couldn't fall apart like that, couldn't be broken down. So when it was being taken apart, first of all, first of all, you're stunned and you don't know what in the world's happening. You think maybe it won't keep on. It's denial, I guess. It's kind of like the
Right.
processes of grief. You think, well, this can't be happening. Well, it'll stop soon, but then it doesn't stop. And then you have to figure out what to do next. You think, well, if I do this, maybe that's the bargaining phase. And I think that there at one point I actually wrote a poem about those stages and how I was walking through them. But I think that there was a stage where I went through that I was terrified. I was afraid to speak out. Here I live where nobody's around me, but I still felt like I didn't feel free anymore to say what I needed to say. When I watched people being taken off in chains to El Salvador and all the things that were happening, when I started doing what they're doing, I really felt afraid for a while. And I think that's the other thing. I think that was really part of what made me do it, is I can't be afraid of my own government. I cannot do nothing. I can't be a person who doesn't do anything, but I'm not good at a lot of things. I'm afraid to do a lot. I can't be a protester in some place that might be violent. I'm too, I don't know. I'm just not brave in that way. But I realized that I'm of a certain age now. My children, my grandchildren, they can't do some things, but that I can do right now. So I guess that once I got scared and once I confronted the, that I can't accept that. I can't accept that I'm going to be afraid to speak out, and that my fellow citizens are going to be afraid to speak out. We may not want to be slanderous or whatever, but we should be able to be to use satire. We should be able to use whatever we do in the literary world, or to even speak out with our voices. But I think those of us who are like me have to, I don't know why I can't be more brave in that way, but I decided I would be brave this way. And that one thing is, I did not want my grandchildren to say, well, what did you do? What did my grandparents do? Why didn't they do anything? Because we were too afraid. I'm not, as I told yesterday, I was at Bear Pond, and I said, Southerners are like, I'm just not going to have it. Is kind of the way my grandma might say it. So I just felt like we can't be afraid. We can't give up our rights. We have to fight for them. And it took me a while to realize that I'm looking around. Who's going to do something? Why doesn't somebody do something? And now I know many people are doing many things. And I'm heartened by that, because the more I know, the more I try to do something or speak out, I see other people doing other things. And it's amazing to me. I think I'm not the only one who's not going to have it. A lot of us are just not going to have it.
If you could hand this anthology to one kind of reader, who is it?
Well, I've been hoping that we'll send copies to all of to our senators and representatives. I might want to send it to somebody in the news business. But one kind of reader? Maybe somebody who's a little bit afraid to speak out, but have things they want to say. One of my good friends who's in the book, told me the other day that she had cried every day until the day I asked her to write a poem. And then she said, "Oh, that's what we can do." So I think that's what I would like. A person who wants to write, maybe will do it, but just to read it and to say, "Oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not alone in how I feel." And it should help, I hope, people organize their own thoughts about how they feel and what they believe and what they want, what we want next, and what we're going to have next, and how hard it's going to be to get through it. We're all going to have to be strong.
So if people then, so Sharon, so where's the best place that people could pick up this book?
Well, I know that Bear Pond has copies in Montpelier, and up in the Northeast Kingdom, Tunnel Books was our host for the Catamount launch, and Green Mountain Books in Lindenville, Kim has it. We're going to be down in Brattleboro at the library there in June, and also at Byway Books in June. We're going to be at the Pearson Library in Shelburne, and I know that Flying Pigs Books will have books there. So they also can order them. You can order them on Amazon or, however you want to, or directly from Rootstock Publishing.
Okay. Excellent. So Sharon, I had a fantastic conversation. I would love to come back on again when you have another book coming out. This has been fun.
All right. I don't know what I'll have next. This totally surprised me because I'm writing a speculative fiction novel and a memoir and poems. It's completely different stuff.
Right.
So yeah, maybe I'll have one of those one of these days.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Okay. Thank you, Barney.